Today's video is how to get a divorce and not completely screw up your kids. Hi, I'm Maddie and welcome back to the Anti-Alienation Project, or welcome if you're new here. During my parents' divorce, my mom began to tell me lies and manipulate me to reject my dad. She did this using false allegations and a whole wide range of tactics. And what ended up happening is that for the next 20 years, I rejected my dad. I learned about the term parental alienation about 2 years ago, and since then I've been on a journey to speak out against this abuse and rebuild my relationship with my dad, as well as form a coalition of adult children of parental alienation so that we can change things for the next couple generations of children to come. 2 disclaimers. Number 1, I'm not an expert. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a researcher. I'm someone who was completely destroyed during and after my own parents' divorce, and so I'm coming from the child's point of view. Number 2, I don't speak for all children of divorce. I don't speak for all alienated children or all former alienated children. This is just my story and my experience. You might be watching this video about to get divorced, or maybe you're going through a divorce, or maybe you already went through a divorce and you're experiencing some difficulties in your relationship with your kids. Maybe you're scared that if you do get divorced, you will screw up your kids. But I'm here to tell you that children are resilient. Divorce does not have to completely ruin your child or the outlook of your child's life. But something that often happens during a divorce is known as parental alienation, which is a type of abuse where one parent goes on an obsessive rampage to turn their child against their other loving parent without true justification. This is an angry, often spiteful, jealous parent who wants to isolate the child, to hurt the other parent, to take away their loving relationship, and to control the child. This is what my mom did to me. Starting in the end of their marriage, when I was about 9 years old. The parental alienation, that abuse my mom would put me through for 20 years, that is what really screwed me up. It was not their divorce. In fact, when I was a child and my parents told me they were getting divorced, I felt relief. That's how bad their marriage was. That's how toxic the environment was that I was living in with my parents' horrible marriage. I was relieved when they told me they were getting divorced. And if my mom had allowed me to continue to love my dad, if she had allowed my relationship with my dad to naturally continue without interfering, without obsessively destroying my relationship with my dad, I believe I would have been on a much healthier, happier trajectory of life. I would have avoided so many traumas and so many negative effects. She really destroyed me by turning me against my dad. And now I have to live with the fallout from that. So for anyone watching, this video is about how to get divorced without completely screwing up your kids. What I'm going to use for this video is I'm going to draw on my own life experience, but go through the 17 primary alienating strategies that Dr. Amy Baker has found in her research. Now, I do believe that there are more than these 17 strategies, but it's a good start, so let's go through it. Number 1, badmouthing or denigrating the target parent. The targeted parent is what we call the parent whose relationship with their child is being destroyed unjustifiably. This will include verbal and nonverbal communications to the child that the targeted parent is unloving, unsafe, bad, unavailable, doesn't care, doesn't love you. Existing flaws are exaggerated and non-existent flaws are manufactured. Say, for example, you have a parent who's absolutely loving and caring and a healthy, fit parent, but say they have a habit of running late. That's an example from my life. My dad usually ran late. He just happens to be late. My mom would use that to tell me that my dad doesn't care about me, that he doesn't want to see me. And she would set up a situation so that every time he was late, it would reinforce to me, oh, I guess dad doesn't care about me. Every person has flaws, so it's unavoidable. And they will also manufacture other things that are not true. They will tell the child lies. They will make up stories that are fabricated or completely blown out of proportion. They do not tell the child much of anything at all that is positive about their other parent. They make it extremely hard for the child to see any good in their other parent. Number 2, they limit contact. This can involve what's known as custodial interference, having the child refuse to go to the other parent by using mind control to make the child believe it's their own decision that they don't want to go with their other parent. However, custody and equal parenting time is very important. And right now, family courts are actually enabling this in a lot of ways by giving the child the right to choose and having the child allowed to testify in court. But a lot of these children are under the control of their alienating parents, so they don't actually know the truth and they're just their parents' puppet, essentially. Number 3 is interference with communication. This involves demanding constant access to the child when they're with their other parent. This can look like a bunch of calls while you're with your other parent, a bunch of texts while you're with your other parent. It can also look like intercepting gifts or letters or messages and not giving them to the child and making the child believe that parent hasn't sent any gifts or hasn't sent any letters, doesn't care about them. What this leads to is the child feeling rejected. They're made to believe their targeted parent does not care about them, has not sent them the emails or messages or whatever it may be because the alienator parent has intercepted them. This is very common, and what's really hard is oftentimes the targeted parent has no idea that the other parent has been doing this. And the child has no idea either. That's why it's really important for targeted parents to keep receipts. So later on, when their child does question things or wants to hear the other side of the story, you will have all of that information to show them, hey, I wrote you these letters, I wrote you these emails, I went to court to fight for you, I did this, I did that, and here is the evidence. It'll be, sorry, this is my dog. Come here, Vinny. She wants pets. Number 4 is interfering with symbolic communication. And I'm just going to read the definition that Amy Baker gives because this one's a little trickier, I think, to understand. She says it's thinking about, talking about, or looking at pictures of a parent while away can help a child feel close and connected to their absent parent. The alienating parent creates an environment in which the child does not feel free to engage. Alienating parents, however, are able to make their presence felt to the child when the child is with the targeted parent. That's absolutely true. The child is preoccupied with thoughts of the alienating parent when they're with the targeted parent. Yes. Making frequent calls to check in? Yes. Following rules imposed by the alienating parent? Yes. And the child's mind and heart are preoccupied with the alienating parent when they're with the targeted parent. So if you think about the bite model of how cults are able to control people and bring them into the cult and to be members of the cult, indoctrinate them, it's the bite model, BITE. They control their behaviors, the information they know, their thoughts, and their emotions. And that's exactly what the alienating parent does. So when I was with my targeted parent, who's my dad, I would be constantly looking for evidence that he was the person my mom made me believe he was. And then whenever he did anything little that enforced the beliefs she had, I would get more anxious. I would text my mom, I would call my mom, I would want to leave, or I would leave, or I would refuse to go. So she completely controlled my mind. And it's almost like the thoughts that I had about my dad were simply the thoughts that my mom wanted me to have about my dad. She had mapped out my thought patterns before I even had a chance to come up with my own conclusions. Number 5 is a withdrawal from love, and this is really heartbreaking, and it's really confusing to experience this as a child. So alienating parents make their approval very important for the child, and the child is starved of unconditional love because they believe their targeted parent, who probably is the healthier parent and could love them unconditionally, they believe that parent doesn't love them usually, or is uncaring, bad, whatever it may be. And then obviously the parent who's abusing them does not love them unconditionally. So that child is starved of unconditional love. I cannot emphasize that enough. So if you are an aunt or an uncle or a grandparent in that child's life and you have the opportunity to show them any amount of unconditional love, please shower them in it. They will eat it up. They will remember that, and they will use that in the future, hopefully, to help guide their own parenting practices. That's what I do now with my grandma. She was a source of unconditional love for me. I just channel what she would do now as a mother myself. So when the child does disappoint or upset their alienating parent, it is obvious to the child that they have made a mistake. And usually there is a withdrawal of love, whether that be with silent treatment. What hurts the alienating parent most is the child's love for the targeted parent. Depraved, but that's true. In order to secure the love of their alienating parent, the child must deny their love for their targeted parent. Whether they have to convince themselves they don't love them anymore, or they never did, or whether they have to simply stuff it down and forget about it, they are terrified of losing the love of their alienating parent. Number 6, telling the child that their parent is dangerous. This can involve stories of how the targeted parent can and will hurt the targeted parent or the child, but it could also be more covert. If the alienating parent displays real fear or even pretend fear around the targeted parent, the child's going to see that their parent is afraid of the other parent, and naturally that's going to make the child afraid of the other parent too. And if you try to control your child so much and put them in this box where they can't have a relationship with the other parent, I swear to you, one day they're going to get so sick and tired of being in that box that they're not going to want to be controlled by you any longer. I don't know anybody who has been through this as a child who has a happy or healthy relationship with their alienating parent. Most of us do not have a relationship with our alienating parents. Anyone listening who has done any of this, if you've accidentally slipped up, it's okay. It really is. Start from today. Learn from this video. Learn from these strategies what not to do to your child. If you want to have them in your lives for good, let them love both parents. It's not a competition. It doesn't have to be you or them. Number 7 is forcing the child to choose. Terrible. And a lot of parents do this, and a lot of parents use the court system. One common way they do this is that they will set up events, whether it be a trip or a special night, a dinner, or whatever it may be. They will interfere with the other parent's custodial time by making it so the child has to choose whether they go with you or whether they go with them. And that is a very covert and subtle way to make the child choose. Either way, no matter what the child chooses, by the way, they're going to feel guilty. And they're going to feel bad, like they have upset one of their parents. Please do not put your child in the position where they have to choose me or you. Please do not. Number 8 is something that my dad did not know was going on. Actually, most of the stuff that my mom was doing to me, he didn't know about. But this one is a hard one for people to believe. But it's telling the child that their other parent doesn't love them. And you might think, what kind of parent would do that? Because I've had that thought too, like a lot. That's why I believed it for so long. Because I never crossed my mind that my mom would tell me that as a lie. That she would make me believe the most painful thing that I have grappled with for the past 20 years if it weren't true. Some parents will tell their children that their other parent doesn't love them. Now, you might be watching this video and you might have an ex-husband or an ex-wife who truly is not great, who is lousy. Maybe they've treated you poorly. I don't know the exact situation, but even if you do have a co-parent who is difficult and who is subpar or who you believe doesn't love your children, even if you believe they don't love your child, please do not tell your child this. For a child to be made to believe that one of their parents, one of their creators, the person who made them, the person who is supposed to love them more than anyone, doesn't, you're causing an internal wound that will never be closed. It will be a gaping wound that will play out in that child's life as a series of self-destructive and negative effects that might end in addiction, that might end in suicide. In fact, the healthy-minded thing to do, if your child comes to you, for example, and is upset because they really do have an absent parent, why isn't mom or dad making an effort to spend time with me? You're not going to say, well, I'm sorry, I wish they loved you. You're not going to say that. You're going to say something else. Honey, I'm so sorry. Your parent does love you. They do care about you. They are, whatever it may be, talk to a therapist about what else to say, but you're not going to tell them that you believe they don't love them. Please, for the love of God, even if that's what you believe, don't tell them that. Number 9. 9. Confiding in the child. They will confide in the child issues about the marriage, issues about their other parent, legal issues, personal and private information about the targeted parent that the child does not need to know. They will portray themselves as the victim of the targeted parent, when in fact, that's pure projection. This makes the child frustrated, angry, and upset with their targeted parent. Children should not be involved or made to be a confidant about adult matters. Please, let your child be a child. Find a therapist, find some friends, find a new partner, find a journal. Do whatever you need to do. Don't talk to your child, even if you think your child is mature or beyond their years. Do not talk to your child about your emotional, psychological, marital issues. You're going to take your child's childhood away from them. The moment you treat your child like your therapist is the moment you take away their childhood. Please let them be healthy and happy. So the alienating parent will create situations where the child will reject the targeted parent, whether that's having the child call their parent to cancel a trip or cancel an upcoming event. And not only is the targeted parent being denied something that they want to participate in, but the alienating parent is using the child, so it hurts the parent that much more. And the child here is just being used as a pawn. They're just being weaponized. They're treated like an object. Do not do this. If your child has plans to spend time with their other parent, you got to commit to that. You got to let them go. This is just a way that they put the child in the middle. And by having the child do this, having the child reject or cancel plans or whatever it may be, that enforces the alienation for the child. Number 11 is asking the child to spy. I'm not really a fan of the wording in this because I don't think that many alienating parents are going to literally ask, hey, will you spy for me? They might suggest to the child, for instance, that there might be something at their house that they're hiding. As Amy Baker mentions, once children betray a parent by spying on them, they will likely feel guilty and uncomfortable being around that parent, and that furthers the alienation. Yeah. Number 12 is asking the child to keep secrets from the targeted parent. That's pretty straightforward. Keeping secrets creates psychological distance between the child and the targeted parent. It sets up this framework in the child's head that they can't trust their other parent. Number 13 is referring to the targeted parent by their first name. Okay, so I've had a lot of experience now talking to other child survivors of this abuse, and it is so weird to me that so many of our alienating parents use the same tactic of when they were upset or disappointed with our behavior or something we did or said, they would call us by our targeted parent's first name. So whenever my mom was mad at me, she would be like, okay, and call me by my dad's name. And of course, because I was believing all these negative things about my dad, that was an insult back then. And it's really disrespectful. It's subconsciously or consciously stripping the identity of parent from the other parent in the brain of your child. If you're divorced or getting divorced, please never call your child's other parent by their first name to your child. 14 is referring to the step-parent as mom or dad and encouraging the child to do the same. This goes along with trying to replace the targeted parent with this new person that they brought into their life. I don't have personal experience with this because my mom never really dated after my dad. It's also common for them to get a new partner and try to get that partner to adopt the child. And this is, of course, extremely painful for the targeted parent to be literally replaced. But just a lot of people who are adopted as children will go on to try to seek out their biological parents. A lot of alienated children, when they get older, will try to seek out this parent. Just to make it clear to any parents who are divorced or going through divorce, seeing a parent is a trauma. It's irreplaceable. That targeted parent is irreplaceable. You can try all you want to get a new partner and make your child believe that's their parent. I guarantee you that's only going to make that gaping wound in your child bleed even faster, even more furiously. You are hurting your child. You are abusing your child by depriving them of the love of their other parent. 15 is withholding academic, medical, or other important information from the targeted parent. Very common. Keeping the targeted parent's name off of medical, academic, or other relevant documents. So you're using different systems. You're using the medical system, the educational system, different systems. This can even be a birth certificate. For instance, the targeted parent will be at a big disadvantage not being contacted in emergencies, for example. They won't know what's going on with their kid if there's an emergency. They won't be invited to participate in events or other happenings in their child's life. And of course, the alienator is probably telling the child that their parent just doesn't want to come, that they don't care enough to come. But it also makes it so difficult, almost impossible for the targeted parent. Do not do this to your child. If you think that you can get away with any of these strategies and not have damage to your child, then you are severely underestimating not only your child, but also how much of an impact, a destructive impact, your actions are going to cause. Number 16 is changing the child's name to remove the association with the targeted parent, usually their last name. And we see this right now with Brad Pitt and his kids. That's big in the media right now, how they're all dropping Pitt from their last name. And this goes back to bringing a new partner into the picture too. Sometimes they will have the child's last name changed to the last name of their new partner. This is a way to try to forge this new identity. They control their behaviors, information they have, their thoughts and emotions in order to replace the child's authentic identity with this new identity. In a way that they do that, it's a false identity. The child is going to have unbelievable amount of cognitive dissonance and pain and heartache, and they're going to try to enforce this new identity on the child, and a way that they do that is by changing the child's name. Very common. Again, parents who go through divorce, no. Your child needs to be able to retain their authentic identity. If you do this, you are going to be screwing up your child and their ability to know themselves and who they are and to live authentically. Finally, number 17 is the last alienating tactic that Dr. Amy Baker talks about. It's cultivating dependency on the alienator and undermining the authority of the targeted parent. It's having that one good parent and one bad parent, this black and white mentality. And kids do have a very black and white mentality until the age of 10, 11. So it naturally happens, and it's easy for the alienator. So it's easy for the alienator to do this. If you ask an alienated child about their alienating parent, they will usually say they're great, they're perfect, they're awesome, they're holy, and they behave in a way that they're dependent. And that's because alienating parents like their children to be dependent on them. That is their best case scenario. They love it. They don't want their children to think for themselves. They don't want their children to be self-sufficient. They don't want them to have critical thinking. They don't want their children to be autonomous. At the same time, they're going to undermine the authority of the targeted parent so that they have that loyalty bond, and the child feels only loyal to the alienating parent. One example of this is that the targeted parent might have a rule for the child, and the alienating parent will mock it or override it or simply degrade the other parent. And this holier-than-thou attitude sometimes comes out in the actions of the child. Essentially what happens is that they're replacing the authentic identity of that child with this new false identity they want them to have, which is often a replica of the personality disordered individual's identity or beliefs and values. If you are a parent who has accidentally confided in your child or told them something you shouldn't have about the other parent, it is okay if you've done this and you've made a mistake. You can learn from it and change and grow and stop. Stop those behaviors. Do not do these 17 tactics. Now, if you're someone who is listening to this video and you're thinking to yourself, this girl is just got it twisted and I'm going to keep doing these 17 strategies or whatever it may be anyway, because whatever the case may be, I'm going to tell you right now, there's a big chance you're going to lose contact with your child when they're old enough to realize what you've done to them. Even if you believe you're justified. If you want a relationship with your child down the line, let them love their other parent. Do not confide in them. Do not make them believe the other parent doesn't love them or is bad. Don't interfere with their parenting time. Don't interfere with their communication. Don't limit contact. Encourage them to go. I think that if you avoid all of these things, and if you let your child and encourage your child to love their other parent, say good things about your co-parent. I hope this video is insightful or helpful to some people. I sincerely hope it reaches the ears of some people who might be doing some of these tactics so that you can stop. That's all for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any suggestions or any comments, leave it down below. Make sure you subscribe to my channel if you haven't already done so. Never lose hope.